Hey guys, and welcome to a rather special video. Today we're going to be taking a look at not one, but two battles, focusing around the mighty Rakarth. Is he really garbage like most people say? Is he niche and can be used in certain situations? Is there always a better lord option? Today, those are the things we will discover, and our first game is going to be up against Captellus, as I shall be leading the forces of the Dark Elves up against the Vampire Counts, and after this we will have another battle as well, so make sure to stick around for that. We've gone for something a little bit dirty here. We're going for a full air force, really trying to look to bring the pain to any enemy flyers or cycle charge corpse carts and ground lords and heroes to death. Now, this is one of the main ways you can indeed bring Rakarth. He is a rather versatile lord in the fact he can come on foot, he can come on a Stormrunner chariot, a manticore, or a dragon. Now, on paper, the manticore seems like the best option to me, just by briefly going over all his mount options and what he actually brings to the battlefield. He has anti-large, so an anti-large manticore is always very good because manticores tend to hit relatively hard, and it's nowhere near as expensive as bringing him on his dragon. Today we're coming in with the Whip of Agony, which is a nice little debuff that can be used onto enemy large creatures. We also have a Whiplash and a Beast Lord Gaze, which will both buff our troops, either by leadership or increasing our own abilities here of charge speed, base weapon damage, armor piercing weapon damage, and charge bonus. We also come in with our own beast armor here, so if we are fighting large creatures, which is what Rakarth is completely designed to do, we should be getting a buff there of melee defense and damage resistance, and boy oh boy does Rakarth need that. With no ability to heal, he can take a massive damage early on at taking on these gigantic threats. Supporting him in the air game, we do have a Master coming in as well with that Guardian to help protect him, with a Sorceress of Shadows with Enfeebling Foe, Pit of Shades, as well as Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma to slow down our opponent. We have a couple of units of Harpies. In fact, actually, just know there's 2 units. Yeah, 2 units of Harpies and a Manticore. Now, the reason we're deploying this really weird formation is my opponent does have Lord of the Storm, which is basically Tempest, so we don't want to all get caught in that. We do have triple Stormrunner chariots looking to drive towards the heart of the enemy formation and take down, once again, large creatures and key targets. And then all we can afford is a load of red spears, and they're going to be hiding at the very back of the map, whilst everything else does push forward, looking to get to grips with the enemy battle line. For the forces of the Vampire Counts, we do have Fellbats up in the sky, 2 units of them in fact, and then it is a Von Karstein Vampire Lord. This is the one Lord we really did not want to see today. I wanted to see a Dragon Lord up in the sky, but not one that comes in with Storm of the Night. It does massive damage to enemy flyers and slows them down. He's got Undeath Resurgence, Raise Dead, as well as Invocation of Nahek. And of course he is a dragon, so he has that lovely breath attack as well. On the down force here, on the ground, we do indeed have the double Black Knights over on this right-hand side. On the left-hand side, we have the Dire Pack, Dire Wolves, and even more Black Knights. And the main battle line is made up of a mixture of zombie forces, as well as some Graveguard. Graveguard, very powerful. So we have triple Graveguard, one of which is the Sternsman, the Regiment of Renown here. We have double Corpse Cart as well, one with an Unholy Lodestone, and one that is basic there. And then we have 2 White Kings. White Kings, of course, coming in with their very, very, very powerful and definitely not overtuned ability here, which does cause a load of magical and fire damage in a long, thin, expanding, tear-shaped attack. Very powerful stuff. The Master Engineer has a similar item as well with the Fiery Ring of Fori. So what we're doing immediately is shooting up into the sky with our Stormrunner chariots, going after that Von Karstein Vampire Lord. When Vampire Counts lose their Lord, the battle becomes so hard for them because they don't have the best leadership based on the reasoning that, of course, they crumble rather than actually going down here. We're going to move the Harpies to deal with the Fellbats, which they should be able to do rather effectively, and the Manticore is simply going to kite back against the Von Karstein Lord and then snipe him down with the Stormrunner chariots. We have Harpies in the distance, once again, hacking down Fellbats as quickly as possible. I want them gone so there's nothing to mess up our attack, and we can really punish this Lord. Now, I think this is a bit of a mistake for me straight out of the gate. Stormrunner chariots should not be shooting at the Von Karstein Vampire Lord. We have so much to deal with him in the air game that this is just wasted ammunition. This shot should realistically be going into these corpse carts and into the White Kings. At least that's what I think, looking back, if I'm going to be critiquing my own performance there. Harpies do try to move through the Fellbats to escape the wrath of the Von Karstein Vampire Lord, but the Fellbats are very notorious for being a bit sticky and pinning all your troops, and the Harpies actually get terrified there and are starting to run and flee for their life. You can see we're still pinning a load of pressure onto the Karstein Lord there with our Stormrunner chariots. Now, we are going to ramrod on to the Scurvy Dogs and the Dire Pack. Yes, they've got that bonus versus large, but we have Harpies here, we have Stormrunner chariots, we have absolutely everything. I'm looking to bring the pain to my enemy. But once again, I underestimate the stickiness of Vampire Count units, and though we're absolutely decimating them, they're basically, they're unbreakable. They're going to be crumbling here and pinning in all our units. So once again, my opponent does a fantastic job of pinning in these Harpies, and we already have 1 unit of Harpies being forced off the battlefield, and it looks like the second one may indeed go down as my opponent tries to get a nice one-on-one fight against our Manticore. We're going to get a little lick in there and then start retreating away once more. Storm of the Night comes down, hitting the Master, although that's all it hits, which is really good for me right now because it's only hitting 1 unit total. One Squadron Chariot has unfortunately been unable to peel back out of that nice little trap of the Dire Pack there. We're going to be popping Melkov's Mystifying Miasma down on the Von Carstein Vampire Lord. He has popped Undeath Resurgence. I think he's trying to get a breath attack in there as well even. But we've got the Manticore here, we have the Master, we have the Sorceress, we have so much potential. Rakarth, unfortunately, is just miles away from the battlefield because he's been stuck right now against the Fellbats, who are taking very little damage. Squadron of Chariot, my opponent really wanted to jump on that and snatch it up as quickly as possible, so we're going to take advantage by dropping a big old fat pit of shades down and catching a load of these Black Knights out of position. And look at the damage! It's really ripping and tearing into them with some deadly effectiveness there, and that is a beautiful load of damage. Oh my god, look at the corpses down on the ground. There are so many dead. And at the end, probably wasn't the worst trade in the end for a Squadron Chariot. The Von Carstein Vampire Lord is getting very, very danger low right now. He does manage to terrify off the Scourge Runners, and they're going to be falling back to safety, or at least we hope. I don't know where the third model is. They have 2 there. Another one must be stuck in the mist here. Rakarth is still trying to deal with Fellbats and kind of struggling a little bit hard, so he's not even able to really do his main job today, which is to take down this Von Carstein Vampire Lord. We do drop a Melkov's Mystifying Miasma down. Manticore, the Master, and the Sorceress all coming in, pecking and trying to rip at the rotten flesh of that Carstein Lord, who is continuously getting popped in the dome at the same time by the Squadron Chariots. Despite the pressure, he's nearly managed to get to his healing cap due to the fact there's been some really nice play here by Cap Tellus to keep this bad boy alive. We do get a lovely Lord of the Storm go down. It's only going to catch the Pharaoh Manticore though, who has, unfortunately for me, a Rampage, so he may just dive down into the wrong position. The Vampire Lord, though, is negative 30 leadership, looking to crumble, and down the mighty beast goes. Rakarth finally getting in there and being like, hey, look, guys, I'm helping, I'm doing my job. Pharaoh Manticore is going after the Corpse Guard, which is honestly a really good target for me, though it may get messed up by the Grave Guard. So we're going to come in with Rakarth as well, looking to try to snipe this single entity. And, you know, we do some relatively decent damage there, pecking and ripping and tearing up its face there onto those zombies. We're not having the best of days so far, and it looks like we are going to be able to destroy one of the Corpse Carts. Just one more to go now. The front lines have engaged, with the Dread Spears being overwhelmed by zombies. Now, the big problem for me, realistically, is the Grave Guard and the White Kings. This Manticore of mine is just out of control, charging into the lines of the Grave Guard with his big old paws. Look at that little roar there. I don't think you'll be able to scare the undead there, I'm afraid, buddy. And the double White King are going to be stabbing and poking up its rear end. And the Pharaoh Manticore looks like it may indeed break, which is really bad news for me. Now, Squadron of Chariots are focusing down the Black Knights in the back, just trying to rip and tear them to pieces, because I've got a feeling they could really do some nice cycle charging onto my main force, but more importantly, they can pin in my single entities in the form of the Sorcerer, the Master, as well as Rakarth. And I'm really starting to think, what do I want to go after here? Do I start cycle charging the White Kings, or do I go after the Black Knights? And I decide, you know what? Before we get surrounded by the Black Knights, I'm going to jump them instead and try to get them off the field as quickly as possible. And this unit of Black Knights is really getting dumpstered quite hard. They're starting to crumble here, and the Corpse Cart is going to roll past. Now, more beat up Black Knights will be swarming over, and more importantly, the double White Kings are going to be trying to shuffle their booties back into action and come after Rakarth, who, as I said before, is very, very squishy for a Lord that's meant to fight single entity characters and monsters. Squadron Chariots continue to rain in shots, currently aiming at this Corpse Cart, but not being super effective in their aim right now. And all of my characters are stuck. This is a terrible situation. Master does have Whiplash popped on him. Sorceress of Shadows is trying her best to support Rakarth, who's desperately trying to push his way to freedom. So we're going to once again pull our trap card out and activate it with a Pit of Shades. So this Pit of Shades should be able to clear our way through all of the Black Knights, and they're really the only unit that's actually pinning us in here. We should be able to drag ourselves away from the Grave Guard, but likewise, those Grave Guard are taking a massive beating. Dread Spears are looking to come in to the assistance there. Do unfortunately actually decide to fall back and help finish off these Direwolves instead. Rakarth probably wants to dive down here and try to help save the Sorceress and the Master, but there is, of course, always the possibility that we will get stuck in there with them. So I'm desperately trying to drag these guys. I'm spam clicking their way to freedom, but they don't really want it at the moment. Sorceress seems like she may eventually be able to get up there into the skies once more. Now, the Dread Spears, like their name would suggest, are having a dreadful time right now, as the zombies and the Grave Guard are really hacking and slicing them to pieces. Look at those shields. Oh, a lovely little shield bash by this guy. Someone give him a raise. He also just got cut in the neck, so he won't be long for this world. I have a decent amount of Dread Spears over on this right-hand side. Unfortunately, the Master just really is not having a good time. We're going to chuck in the Ferromanticore, who has managed to come back from Roughton, but is so beat up, it's really not going to be able to do too much. So I thought, you know what, chuck it in there, try and get some lucky hits where possible. Rakarth is also going to swoop down with Beast Slayer, but not quick enough there to save the Master. I'm not risking the Sorceress of Shadows right now, because I need that magic in these later stages of the game if I want to seal victory. Because even if we can, Cycle Charge the Corpse Cart, Cycle Charge the Whitekins, there's a lot of Graveguard left, including a 90 Sternsman, so another pit of shades on them would be really quite tasty. Dread Spears are doing okay. They're cleaving their way through zombies, up to 64 kills, which isn't something you normally see on Dread Spears, but normally they're fighting slightly more elite troops. Somehow the Ferromanticore is going strong. That's because we've popped the Beast Lord's Gaze, increasing its leadership and stopping it from rampaging there. Unfortunately, it does shatter a bit. It allowed us to get a few more hits in, and the Corpse Cart did feel those quite hard there. Rakarth is going to start the long process of cycle charging. He does manage to whack one of those White Kings to the ground and is going to try to flee back from these pesky Black Knights. Luckily for me, they are crumbling super quickly, so the Sorceress of Shadows is going to come down and just help move that process on a little bit, speed it up a little bit, and make them crumble just that tad quicker. Another Black Knight does bite the dust. So we've managed to take out the majority here of the cavalry from my opponent. The White Kings coming doing some massive damage to the Dread Spears. Very powerful item, mainly because it's almost undodgeable, unless you are moving at the time of it being kind of brought into the battlefield. March in the distance has managed to rally here. He's looking a little bit beat up, and maybe Rakarth might be able to, you know, encourage him by threatening him with some torture or something and bring him back to the main battlefield. Corpse Cart's very close to going down. The Sorceress of Shadows is getting slightly pinned in. She does not have the mass, unfortunately, of the Manticore that Rakarth has. And, yeah, she's actually getting her arse absolutely whooped right now by the double Whitekins. So if we get her out of here, which we're desperately trying to do, we've got Corpse Cart's kind of bolstering all these forces, but Rakarth's going to swoop in to try to save the Sorceress. But if she goes down, we're going to be in a really bad spot. And she actually shatters there, which only 46 HP, so her mass really was a big drawback for us this battle, as it allowed those White Kings to drag her down. But we're certainly not out of the fight just yet, though the balanced power does think so. We still have these Stormrunner chariots. They can obviously hopefully finish off this Corpse Cart and assist in killing the White Kings, but now we have absolutely zero to deal with the Sternsmen, which can often be the problem when facing them. If you don't deal with them early enough, they can always win the end game. But we have Rakarth, and what could possibly go wrong when we have the mighty, majestic Lord of Destruction himself leading our battle line? I do notice this little White King's been a little bit overextended here. He's going to be getting dragged back, but we're going to be trying to hop on top of him and maybe punt him away from the main battle line, so then we can feast upon his soul. But unfortunately, he continues to run back to the Sternsman, and we're going to be lacing more and more Stormrunner shots in, trying to kill that Corpse Cart. Stormrunner traps have been very inaccurate today. It could possibly be on this map. There's quite a lot of hills up and down these rolling hills, so I'm going to be actually moving around onto this side of the battle line, so hopefully we can actually shoot and finish off that Corpse Cart. Dread Spear's going to be kiting backwards. We have some more Dread Spears in the distance. We're just using up our ammunition at the moment. I've got more Dread Spears rallying themselves to the fight one last time. Rakarth, tempted to go in for a dive, does decide to back out at the moment. I'm like, okay, I've got time. I can use up my ammunition and shoot into these units where possible. You can see more of the Graveguard are starting to crumble, and the Corpse Cart does venture a little far wide right now, so Rakarth is going to hop on top of him. Negative 20 leadership. It should hopefully be crumbling into dust. We have more Dread Spears moving their way back to the battle line, and we are going to be slowly pushing them in to the main fight here. Corpse Cart is getting danger low. I'm really trying to finish this guy off as much as possible and as quickly as possible, but he's just clinging on for life. He doesn't want to die once again. He's tried it once, wasn't a big fan, so he's trying to survive and actually hiding amongst the Sternsmen, who are taking shot after shot right now. And at least for me, that will be killing models. Unfortunately, they're undead, so when they regenerate, they will actually gain their models back, which is quite problematic here. Corpse Cart is very, very low, and it's going to be crumbling relatively quickly now, as my opponent simply forms a shield wall, going full-on Viking style here in a desperate attempt to cling to power. Dread Spears are going to start surrounding from all sides. Rakarth probably should actually be just cycle charging here. I was a little bit scared because I know how bad Rakarth is, and was like, oh, I don't know if I want to chuck him out. I feel like he'll die in like 2 seconds. We do have some Stormrunner chariots starting to swoop in. We're continuing to shoot in with this other unit, and Rakarth is finally going to start to commit to a fight, completely overswing on his hit to attack this White King, but he's going to turn around and jump back in, doing some nice damage, sending Graveguards flying in all directions as limbs and body parts and rotten armor is going to fly all over into the face of my own Dread Spears. Then Rakarth simply going to fall back and get ready to cycle charge once more. You can see the Spearmen are actually cheering on their Lord right now, rather than getting involved in the main fight. We're just slowly pushing one Dread Spear in after another, but I could see that the battle wasn't going super great in the middle. There's a lot of Graveguard left alive, so I'm actually going to commit a lot of my Dread Spears, try and get a bit of surround on, and try to make these guys crumble as quickly as possible, whilst Rakarth does indeed pop all of his buffs and start to try to kill the Wildkins. And you can see it's working to a point. The Sternsmen and Graveguard are starting to waver, but my Dread Spears are just so beat up at the moment that they're really struggling quite badly and actually fleeing themselves. Some Felbats have come back. I have no idea what they've been doing all battle. I guess chasing off those Harpies took them the entire battle and they were probably forgotten about, but they have now indeed returned. Scourgerunner chariots are committing to the main fight. Beastlord's Gaze is going to be buffing up the Scourgerunners to stop them from running away, and that's kind of my main problem right now, is all of my troops are fleeing. So I have to have some units engaged in combat if I want to continue to cycle charge with Rakarth. I mean, if I have multi-model chariots, they're fine to cycle charge, but this one's down to just one model. The other one as well, just down to 3. So we're getting a little bit thin on the ground. Rakarth has to start making some big baller moves as quickly as possible. And again, I want to kill the enemy leadership to try to encourage his Graveguard to go back to their graves and retire once more by breaking their leadership and making them crumble. Rakarth does do a little dart down on the Wildkin. Unfortunately for him, those Felbats, the clutch tactical reserve, actually coming in and pinning Rakarth in place. So he's been forced to fight this Wildkin, which is not what he wants to do because he will get his butt slapped by him. Rakarth, obviously, with his buffs will do decent damage though. And I'm actually going to pull out through the enemy formation rather than the Felbats. Felbats are just, I don't even know what it is about their mass. I think it's because there's so many of them blocking you in from so many directions. You really struggle to actually push through Felbats. Now, the Rakarth's doing some decent damage. I'm kind of going all in after this Wildkin right now. I want him dead as dead can be, as the Dread Spears starts pushing once more, and the Scourgerunner chariots lance in on top of these Graveguard, down to 60 models and 57. That's still a ton of damage output, despite their HP being very, very low, and their leadership actually forcing them to crumble. Rakarth's trying his little heart out right now, as more Scourgerunner chariots ramrod into the main battle line. Can Rakarth pull it out of the bag? He has Whiplash popped. He's really going on after that Wildkin, but I have to fall back once more, as more Scourgerunner chariots start to break, and we're really starting to run out of troops. We have 21 Dread Spears, and this last Scourgerunner in the fight, and in swoops Rakarth, trying his best, completely missing his attack animation once more, but now he's going after that Wildkin booty, and he sends one of his own men flying. Get out of my way. Never stand between a Manticore and its prey, and it's doing some decent damage, but the Wildkin is now surrounded by friends, with Rakarth's evil reign of terror has meant that he has no friends left, and my entire army is starting to rout and run away. Now, one thing about Rakarth is he does look pretty badass on his Manticore, but will it be enough? We have a lone Scourgerunner chariot having to commit to the fight here. We can no longer cycle charge, and that is quite problematic because this Scourgerunner chariot as well only has one model, so it's going to be coming back here and trying to take down the Graveguard. Unfortunately for Rakarth, it's looking pretty rough for him. Only 800 HP left, and he's just not connecting with this Wildkin whatsoever. They are not on the same vibe length. And yeah, 900 HP still, and in that time, Rakarth lost a load, and it was going to be a valiant defeat there for our forces of the Dark Elves up against Capt Tellus. But boy oh boy, what a battle. This one deserved a video in its own right, but I really do want to cover Rakarth in his other elements as well. And we do have a replay just after this one, so I'll go through quickly all the damage dealt and stuff, then we'll move on to that next battle, which will be Rakarth on Dragonback. Well played to Capt Tellus, was a really good fun game. I'm not going to speak about it too much just because obviously I don't want to make this video super long, so we can actually catch up both of these battles. But we made a really big mistake at the start, obviously, which was not even losing one Scourgerunner. That was fine trade for the amount of damage we managed to do. But the other two Scourgerunners, 800 damage value and 1,952 seems amazing. But realistically, I think shooting, in hindsight, into the Dragon Lord probably wasn't worth it because we had enough damage to kill him anyway, though I did kill him as quickly as possible. We kind of tunnel vision there on assassinating the enemy lord, and it meant we didn't have enough ammo in the end game to kill those Wildkins and kill the other key targets as quickly as possible. Harpies did okay. I mean, 250 damage value and 145 isn't great, but they helped clear out the Felbats, thus freeing up our single entity goon squad to really take down the enemy as much as possible. Manticore did really good, 1,661 damage value, arguably the best monster in the game. I think I actually just did a video on him, so he's pretty damn good, I must admit. As for the Dread Spears, 162, 250, 220, 160, and 160 damage value. Big kills, but again, they only killed zombies and has got butchered by the Graveguard. Now, the Master got 1,288 damage value, not bad whatsoever. 69 kills on the Sorceress, having a whale of a time today, getting 2,695 damage value. Just shy of 20k damage dealt, some really super nice Pit of Shades to kill the enemy cavalry there. As for Rakarth, our boy, our beloved baby boy, 81 kills, 2,134 damage value, 13k damage dealt. That seems like loads of big numbers, but considering he was fighting like single entities, corpse cards, the enemy general, all targets he should be really perfect at. I'm not sure he paid for himself. I can't remember how much Rakarth costs off the top of my head. Maybe we'll look at the very end of all of this after the next battle. But he is very expensive, and that's kind of the problem I find with Rakarth, is that he's very expensive and very squishy, and the main things you want to send him after enemy kind of monsters or gigantic lords and so forth, and they hit back really hard. So even if he does get his target, he's probably going to die in that attempt, and I feel like basic Manticores do a very similar job to him, slightly worse of course, and not coming in with some rather useful buffs, but you know, I feel like Manticores might just be a better option there. I just realized I didn't go for the damage dealt and damage value of the Vampire Count Force. I do indeed apologise for that one, but basically the Lord didn't do too good. He did okay, but it was basically all about the Graveguard and those White Kings, if I remember correctly. So up next, let's go to... I have so many weird names. These are all replays people have sent in to me, by the way. So please do not judge all of my names. And let's find the next one. Here it is. It is, of course, going to be the legendary Stormrunner. Probably my favourite Dark Elf player, simply due to the fact he brings absolutely bizarre and crazy stuff and makes it work 9 times out of 10. And he himself is going to be bringing Rakarth with Dread Knights, and Rakarth is going to be on a dragon. He's up against Coma White here of Clan BBB. Very awesome clan. Load of cool people over there. That's a shout out to Malverde as well. And it's going to be Dark Elves versus Beastmen, which is an interesting matchup. I've actually seen quite a few people start to take Dark Elves to try to counter Beastmen, because the way you beat Beastmen is you shoot them to death, which is really hard to do because they're one of the best rush factions in the game, but they have so low armor you can really kind of drag them down, and trying to capitalize on this low armor will be the front line here of the Dark Elves. We're coming in with Blackheart Corsairs with Hambos, 1, 2, 3, 4, all along the line, which is actually really quite cool. I don't get to see Blackheart Corsairs or Hambos very often, but it's basically a full skirmish front line here. Just in the back, we do have 2 units of Cold One Dread Knights, so 1 and 2. Look at these guys looking absolutely beautiful. One of the coolest looking Dark Elf units. Obviously have absolutely nothing on Horned ones, but still looking pretty badass, I must admit. Double Dark Riders down on the ground. We do indeed have a Sorceress of Death coming in here with Doom of Darkness, Aspect of the Dread Knight, and Spirit Leech. We have the Chill of Sontar, the most chill and vibiest of all of the War Hydras in the universe, looking pretty ferocious. And then up in the skies, we actually have Rakarth on his pet dragon here. I cannot remember the name of it, but it's got a very cool name, and it looks pretty cool. I like the red tinted horns all round, and the metal armor is always a good look on these gigantic creatures. He's coming in once again with the Whip of Agony, Whiplash, and Beastlord's Gaze. So it looks like he is coming fully equipped. Even Beast Slayer has been brought. Yeah, I like this quite a bit. And the Beast Armor will give him added melee defense and damage resistance. And that's something that dragons really struggle with. They get hit from all angles. They're such large creatures when they land, and they are quite squishy. That extra melee defense and damage resistance may actually come in relatively handy here. For the forces of the Beastmen, we do have Ungor Herds dotted all the way through the front line, backed up here by 1, 2, 3. So we have Ungor Raiders there to bring a little bit of range support. Up in the sky, we have a nice little air core again. Double Harpies, double Manticores, and a Malagor, the Dark Omen. It's pretty cool to see Malagor instead of Taurox. I do love Taurox, he's very cool. I'm also a big fan of the Doom Balls, but Malagor, I mean, we don't get to see Malagor very often, and he's actually pretty powerful. So he's going to be coming in with Arcane Conduit. He's got Flock of Doom, the Pendulum, as well as Enfeebling Foe. He's also going to be buffing up his leadership with the Icons of Vilification, which I'm always a bit in 2 minds about bringing this, because he's flying around the battlefield. Is he realistically going to be using that much? He's never really in the thick of the action. We have a couple of Gore Herds to back up the main battle line with some more Spearmen guarding the flanks. Double Chaos Warhounds in the back, no poison on these bad boys. And then we have a Cygor in that central pocket. So a pretty fun Beastmen build. Certainly, I mean, I don't really know what the meta is up against Dark Elves in this, but I don't think this is super meta. But I mean, it's got double throw Manticore, so hey, it's got to be good, right? And Malagor is going to be pushing forward as well. So Rakarth is going to be a bit of a pain in the butt to deal with. Dragons are actually surprisingly good against Beastmen. It's one of the very few matchups they can actually be brought in, because fast, mobile, hard-hitting terror, which can kill a lot of their lords, is always rather useful. And if you saw any of my last live stream, the One Build Battle Royale, we saw some elite dragon plays there coming in by Charix. It really was a joy to watch. So I must admit, I've kind of been in a dragon mood recently. A big old rock is going to be launched at the Blackheart Corsairs, who unfortunately are taking a solid amount of damage, though I think that second rock did indeed miss. Chillisauntar is going to push very aggressively forward, maybe even looking to do some of his frost attacks onto the Ungor Raiders. Now, it is better if you get down the line of a unit, but sometimes that isn't really an option. And the Blackheart Corsairs do move forward to unleash some shots into the Ungor herds, who are shielded, though, which is a little bit problematic for the Blackheart Corsairs. But yeah, they're going to kite backwards. They don't need to commit to this fight. However, the Harpies may convince them otherwise. If you can pin in one of these units with the Harpies, the Ungors will indeed be able to catch them here. We do see a cheeky Spirit go down on one of the Ferromanticores. The Chillisauntar has taken a considerable amount of damage. This is mainly due to the Ungor Raider pressure and some friendly fire coming in from the Blackheart Corsairs. Both the Manticores risking it all for that Sorcerer's booty, coming in with an enfeebling foe to nuke her stats, and both Manticores trying to land. But this is where Rakarth is shining right now, taking down these monsters when he is on his dragon. He hits so freaking hard, so much harder than when he's on that Manticore. And yeah, that Ferromanticore just gets absolutely clapped right there. He's trying to fall back and flee. Chillisauntar is going to come in, pin the other Manticore to the ground and say, get over here, bro. That's going to allow Rakarth to swoop in and start dishing out the pain. Handbows simply kited back in all directions. Looked like the Harpies were finished off due to the fact that the Blackheart Corsairs were able to pull back constantly in all directions. And on the left-hand side, we can see some Dark Riders, unfortunately, are being finished off by good pressure from the Chaos Warhounds. The Cold Dread Knights are doing fine, though, up against the Ungor Spears and the Chaos Warhounds on the left. With a nice little isolation over on this far side, Cold Dread Knights and Dark Riders going to get a rear attack on the Ungor Raiders, who are rather fruitlessly chasing the Blackheart Corsairs. So really bad day for them. They're going to break very quickly. Then the Dark Riders can chase them off the battlefield. Now, if we have a nice overarching view of the battle, the main strengths left for the Beastmen, of course, is the Cygor. Lovely pendulum goes down the line, carving its way through quite a few Blackheart Corsairs as well. So Malagor has done a decent job, and despite the air pressure really now being kind of dominated by the Dark Elf forces, you know, these Manticores are so beat up and the Harpies aren't going to do anything to Rakarth, well, they're not really going to be able to catch Malagor. That's the bonus of him. He's so quick. I love this play from the Beastmen player, using the Harpies to pin in Rakarth. And now we get a load of arrows raining down on the dragon. Bring it down, bring it down. Its wings are now kind of full of arrow holes, bloodied, blood dripping over his own army as he makes a bit of a desperate retreat there. The Blackheart Corsair Handbows are going to start focusing down. It would seem that Ungor Spearmen trying to assist the Cold One Dread Knights. Don't never be worried to chuck Dread Knights into Spearmen, particularly low cheap Spearmen. You've got 120 armor. They're not really going to do much to you, even with that bonus versus large. Obviously, you don't want to stick in there the entire time, but you can hang out for a while. Ferromanticore does land on the Blackheart Corsairs, but the Common Dread Knight's simply going to swoop up and around, down the hill with a charge on top of that Manticore, and it's probably going to get dragged down as the other Manticore is also really struggling with Rakarth, pushing his way through the Harpies, who may just actually get terror routed, and I don't blame them. It's a big scary dragon which can breathe poisonous, noxious gas into your face, and that Manticore gets exactly my drift as he gets Godzilla'd there and gets knocked down to the ground. Chillisauntar's done a fantastic job helping clear up a lot of the chaff. Ungor Herd, of course, are terrified and falling back. Looks like Malagor does eat a Spirit Leech as a few shots do try to hit him. He's a rather slippery devil, though. He's pretty squishy with only 15 armor. But, yeah, he's very quick and not got a huge model size, so he's quite capable of juking back and forth where possible. Chaos Warhounds seem to be very close to break, and they finally got on top of their prey of these Blackheart Corsairs, but the other bros, the other Blackheart Corsairs, simply going to assist there with their handbows and drag down their troops. Balance power is still relatively even, it is slowly moving in favour of the forces of the Dark Elves here. I really like this cavalry play so far with the Cold One Dread Knights, who are going to be rear-attacking these Ungor Raiders. They've been used to break up so many battle formations, and now Rakarth is going to come down and assist the Chillisauntar in just cleaning out as much infantry as possible. Harpies will dive down, trying to buy some time, no doubt, for these Ungor Raiders to get some shots in. Big Flock of Doom's going to come down. Unfortunately, it's not going to be very good against these single entities. Feels more like a desperation attack here. I think even an enfeebling foe would be better here, or just starting to target other units, because, yeah, Flock of Doom's going to do basically nothing to these single entities. In the back, Blackheart Corsairs are slowly just kiting back Harpies. They're really good against Harpies due to the fact Harpies have 15 armor, which is nothing. So each shot is leaving more and more of the kind of dreaded she-devils in the dirt. And you can see, yeah, they're going down pretty bad right now. More Ungor Herds have been shattered right now by the Cold One Dread Knights, who can return it back into the main fight. Ungor Raiders continue to raid down arrows onto Rakarth, and Enfeebling Foe has indeed been popped on him. This is probably going to be a big fight. If the Cygor can get on top of Rakarth while Enfeebling Foe is active, he could really do some big damage. As we spoke about before, Rakarth does not have access to healing and can be very squishy, but likewise, he has a lot of potential up against something like a Cygor due to the fact he can debuff them so effectively. Big Breath Attack tries to kill Malagor the Dark Omen, but only, unfortunately, instead results in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dead Dread Knights. Dread Knights are expensive as well, but hey, if Rakarth wins this battle, the loot will be worthwhile. He can always buy more. Shield of Sontar has taken a load of damage at this point. It's not that near its healing cap, but you can now see it on its health bar. Should be able to chew its way through the infantry with the support of the Cold One Dread Knights. Beastlord's Gaze buffing up its leadership to stop it from running away or doing anything a little bit too stupid. Now the Sorcerer's Death is going to be moving in to try to chase down the Ungol Raiders. Even if she can't kill them, just keep them busy is going to be the key. Rakarth pops Beast Slayer, Whiplash. He gets hit with an Enfeebling Foe, but a lot of that damage, when it does get through, is going to do so much work. We do get a Spirit Leech and a Whip of Agony, removing that melee defense, which is kind of counteracting the negative melee attack on Rakarth, and he is putting this Cygor in the ground, doing some massive damage. That big rock, though, crashing down on the dragon's head. Likewise, it's starting to hurt him quite badly, but there we get the breath right into the midriff of that Cygor. He's not going to like that too much at all. Now, that giant rock is starting to bring quite a pounding onto the Dragon Lord himself, but the Cygor breaks. Armilos is getting very close. Malagor is unable to inspire his troops like Torx would do here by grabbing them and forcing them back. His evil witchcraft has been proven to be nothing but lies and temptation, and he shatters, running away from the battle. A Pyrrhic victory, this time for Rakarth. Stormrunner showing us how to do it and how to use the scary boy himself. Coming in with 2,000 damage value, so not actually paying for himself and not actually getting as much as we expected, but being very, very healthy in the later stages of the game, killing key targets and then allowing his Cold One Dread Knights to really shine because they can finish off the infinite amount of infantry. So it's basically a really cool synergy build. Use Rakarth to kill the large creatures, use the Cold Dread Knights to kill basically everything else, and you can of course kite back whilst you're doing this with the Black Orc Corsairs. Quite a big fan of this all round, so we are going to hop out of this in a second and just check the pricings of Rakarth and see how expensive he is and, you know, how close these guys were to paying for them today. But before we get into that and into the damage value of all of these units, and I remember to do the opponent's build this time as well, if you guys enjoyed this, make sure to leave a big fat thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more content, and comment down below. What do you think of these double casts? I'd quite happily do a few more of them. They are a longer formatted video, so I'm not sure if that's something people want, but it is more action at the same time and allows us to look at units in multiple different battles. Yeah, let me know down below if you would like more of these. Feel free as well to check out the description. There's a load of links there. One to my Patreon where you can support the channel. One to my Twitch where you can indeed go follow me over there. I do kind of 2 to 3 bonus streams a week on Twitch, which is really good fun. Still mainly stream on YouTube. Don't worry about that. But I do some streams over on Twitch now as well, which has been really good fun. We're doing some campaign streams, actually. And there's a load of links down below. Discord where you can submit replays, all that good standard stuff. Anyway, back to the battle. So, the Mighty Rakarth, 2,000 damage value. Isn't the best, but isn't the worst either, considering how healthy he was. Managed to finish off those Manticores and the Cygor. 266 damage value from the Sorceress of Death, who spent most of the time on the back foot, legging it and running away. As for the Black Orc Corsair Hambos, who got 720 damage value, 560, 365, and 671. Dark Riders got some really big kills, 138 and 172. Chasing off routing units, breaking units, this is what they were designed and born to do. 525 and 911 damage value, over 10k damage dealt. My god, these Dark Riders put in a shift. Likewise, though, did the other cavalry, the Cold One Dread Knights, 197 and 190 kills. 1.2k damage value and 1,000, and this unit still had plenty left to give. Really beautiful cavalry play today by Mr. Stormrunner. For the Mighty Chill of Sontar itself, only 587 damage value, was getting relatively close to its healing cap, but absorbed so much damage, and that is something Hydras are good for. Malagor the Dark Omen, 657 damage value, which isn't great, but isn't terrible. I think there was one that kind of like misplayed Flock of Doom, which was going down on units it just couldn't really do much damage to. But he was floating around, dropping enfeebling foes, and being a general pain in the butt and nuisance. As for the Ungol Raiders, really bad for them, basically. It just was a bad day. They had 0 to attack. Their main job was to absorb the damage from the Hambos. 19 damage value, 18 damage value, 332, 0 value, and 363. Not a good day for the working man's Ungol today. The other Ungol Spearherds, 233 damage value, 370, 560, and 851 from the Goreherds is a slight improvement. And the Ungor Raiders themselves, 226 damage value, 483, and 545. Most of that value coming from the arrows which found a home in the rather tough hide of the Chill of Sontar. Chaos Warhounds, 440 and 270 damage value. You can see Cayman White was really trying to surround the Black Ark Corsairs and pin them in for the rest of his build to catch up, but unfortunately it didn't really quite work out today. As for the Harpies, 240 and 360 damage, 157 and 485 on the Manticores, not having a good show, and the Cygors, or the one Cygor, 1,345 damage value, over 6k damage dealt, really being the MVP here for the Beastmen. So let's quickly go back here and have a little look at the Mr. Rakarth and see just quite how expensive he is. Let's get rid of this and pop up a Dark Elf build. There we go. And let's look at Rakarth. So here's the boy. He is coming in base with absolutely nothing at 1,000 gold, but if you do bring his items, that's going to bump him up quite a bit, particularly if you bring the Whip of Agony and the Beast Armor. The Beast Armor is actually pretty solid. I mean, if you're bringing Rakarth, it's against the faction which can bring large creatures, so it's not terrible, but it does cost you 174 gold. So these were the layouts today. We had one on a Manticore, so 2,181 cost here. So I think in that first game, he just about maybe paid for himself. He was in that ballpark, despite the fact he was up against like the prime targets a lot of the battle. He just about paid for himself, even with all that cycle charging. But on the Dragon, yeah, he costs 3k, so unfortunately Stormrunner's Rakarth did not get anywhere near paying for himself, but you know, he still had a load left in the tank, and maybe could have pulled out the bag at the end. So what do I think of Rakarth? Now, oh, it's Brachus is the name, such a cool name. What do I think of Rakarth? Well, initially I was thinking, hey, the Squadron Chariot's basically useless. Being a foot character is really bad for him, because he's a foot character which doesn't have regeneration. So foot characters with regeneration tend to be considerably better because it's hard to snipe or charge them and snipe them, and that's one thing foot characters tend to be good for, is not being sniped. So having him on foot, an okay idea, but he doesn't have that regeneration, and there's no nets or anything to pin in the enemy, so he's a little bit useless in that regard. And it's not like Count Noculus, where you have this foot character who's super tanky, who's anti-large, but the good thing about Noculus is he's your spellcaster, and your opponent needs to kill him, so otherwise with Rakarth you can kind of just ignore him. Squadron Chariot, he just does not have enough punch, either in range or in combat. With this type of mount, it is very cheap, it gives him mobility, but again, if you're bringing Rakarth, you want him facing those big, heavy monsters, not fighting cheap infantry, so Squadron Chariot's not that good, unfortunately. As for the Manticore, it seems on paper like the best pick. It gives him, makes him very mobile, gives him terror, he still retains that anti-large, and he hits pretty hard, so I think it's most likely still the best, but for his actual job and completing it, Brachus is the best, because he will take so much damage up against other single entities, even with all of his buffs and debuffs he can bring down to them. So if he's on Brachus, he's probably going to win, you know, most fights up against other large creatures, but he's just so expensive that it's almost not really possible in a competitive setting here. So Rakarth, I think he's on the weakest side. Is he garbage? I mean, we've seen today that it is possible for him to win, but just not very often. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you got this far in the video, you're an absolute hero. And until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.